where she dismisses the original Snow White, calling it outdated and unrelatable while proudly declaring that her version wouldn't be saved by a prince or dream of true love. Fans immediately pushed back, accusing her of mocking the beloved classic and prioritizing a modern agenda over the fairy tale's timeless charm. The backlash was swift, with social media users slamming Zegler for disrespecting a film that defined Disney's legacy, and the controversy only grew when it was revealed that the Seven Dwarfs had been replaced with a diverse group of magical bandits. Meanwhile, Brett Cooper, often dubbed the female Ben Shapiro, entered the conversation with Snow White and the Evil Queen, a rival adaptation that promised to stay true to the original story. With audiences rallying behind her take and rejecting Disney's changes, Cooper quickly became the unexpected fan favorite, overshadowing Zegler in a way no one saw coming. As Cooper's version gained momentum, Zegler attempted to backtrack on her past comments, suddenly praising the 1937 film as iconic, but for many, it was too little, too late. Now, the battle of the two Snow Whites isn't just about two actresses. It's about the growing divide between Hollywood's modern remakes and the audiences who crave the timeless stories they grew up loving. Controversy surrounding Disney's Snow White spiraled out of control when Rachel Zegler's comments about the film's modernized approach went viral. Not only was the classic love story scrapped, but the Seven Dwarfs were also replaced, and Snow White's defining traits were rewritten to fit a more independent narrative. While Disney likely hoped these changes would resonate with modern audiences, the backlash proved otherwise. Fans who cherished the 1937 classic saw these decisions as unnecessary alterations to a story that had stood the test of time, and Zegler's dismissive attitude only added fuel to the fire. The outrage reached such a peak that the internet exploded with calls for a "Disney is over" party, with many vowing to boycott the film altogether. Meanwhile, as Disney scrambled to contain the damage, Snow White and the Evil Queen emerged as a direct challenge to their remake, promising to stay true to the original fairy tale. With Brett Cooper's version gaining traction among fans longing for a faithful adaptation, the battle over Snow White became more than just a movie rivalry. It became a cultural moment, proving that audiences still value classic storytelling over forced reinvention. Disney's decision to rename the film to simply Snow White only added to the growing backlash. As fans pointed out the irony, there was only one actual dwarf in a story that originally revolved around seven. Brett Cooper and her supporters were quick to highlight this bizarre change, seeing it as yet another example of Disney prioritizing modern messaging over faithful storytelling. But what really set Cooper off was Rachel Zegler's now infamous remarks dismissing the classic love story. According to Zegler, it's 2023, not 1937, and Snow White doesn't need a prince, especially not one she deemed a creepy man. Her comments reinforced the idea that Disney was actively distancing itself from the fairy tale's original themes, sparking even greater frustration among fans who had been hoping for a nostalgic return to the beloved classic. As Zegler continued to double down on her perspective, audiences only became more disillusioned, while Cooper's Snow White and the Evil Queen gained momentum as the adaptation that actually respected the fairy tale's origins. What started as a simple remake controversy had now turned into a full-blown cultural clash over what audiences truly want from their favorite stories.
They're being dragged on the internet.
She's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she...
Disney's Snow White isn't just cutting Prince Florian, it's rewriting the entire essence of the fairy tale. In this new version, Snow White will follow her late father's advice and carve her own path, rejecting the traditional love story in favor of forging her own destiny. But if that wasn't enough to spark outrage, Rachel Zegler poured gasoline on the fire by outright labeling Prince Florian a creepy stalker obsessed with Snow White's beauty, claiming that removing him was a public service for women. Unsurprisingly, this did not go over well. While some applauded the change, many saw it as yet another example of Hollywood dismissing classic romance in favor of modern messaging. Enter Brett Cooper, who wasted no time calling Zegler out for assuming that all women were tired of love and no longer wanted to build lives with men. Cooper's response struck a chord, resonating with fans who felt alienated by Disney's approach, and the internet took notice. Suddenly, Cooper wasn't just an alternative Snow White. She was the Snow White fans wanted, with her movie gaining traction while Zegler's faced mounting backlash. Now, it's not just a question of which actress plays the role better. It's a battle over whether audiences still value fairy tales as they were meant to be told.
The original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her. Yeah. Weird.
Where they repeatedly emphasized how this Snow White is all about independence and female empowerment, without a prince in sight. But fans weren't buying it. Many pointed out that romance and leadership aren't mutually exclusive, and that classic fairy tales don't suddenly become outdated just because they include love. Brett Cooper, a woman who has excelled in multiple fields, from academia to acting to hosting her own successful show, became the perfect counterpoint to Zegler's argument. She's proof that a woman can girl boss her way to success and still embrace love and marriage. Fans quickly rallied behind Cooper, seeing her as someone who actually respects traditional storytelling without dismissing modern ambition. Meanwhile, Zegler's take continued to alienate audiences, with critics calling it an unnecessary overcorrection. At this point, it's not just about two rival Snow Whites, it's about what audiences actually want from their fairy tales, a faithful adaptation, or yet another Hollywood rewrite. So intense that it turned into a full-blown cultural showdown. On one side, you have Disney's Snow White, a project that claims to be modernizing the classic tale but instead seems to be stripping it of everything that made it beloved in the first place. On the other, Brett Cooper's Snow White and the Evil Queen, a film that promises to stay true to the fairy tale's roots, giving audiences the magic, romance, and adventure they actually want. Fans quickly took sides, with many embracing Cooper as the actress who truly understands the character. Meanwhile, Zegler's attempts to justify the changes only fueled the backlash, as viewers accused her of disrespecting the story. Whether Disney's version will recover from this PR disaster remains to be seen, but one thing is clear: when it comes to Snow White, audiences are making their voices heard loud and clear. Snow White is finally being brought to life in a way that honors its classic roots. Unlike Disney's divisive remake, Snow White and the Evil Queen stays true to the beloved fairy tale, embracing its magic, romance, and adventure without modern reinterpretations. Fans have eagerly rallied behind the project, hailing it as the authentic adaptation they've been waiting for. Meanwhile, Rachel Zegler's version continues to face criticism, with many accusing Disney of stripping the story of its original charm in favor of a revised narrative. As the competition between these two adaptations intensifies, one thing is clear: Brett Cooper and the Daily Wire have reshaped the conversation, and Disney may now have a formidable rival in the world of storytelling. Seeing a true David versus Goliath moment in entertainment. While Disney's Snow White remake has made sweeping changes, including the removal of the 7 dwarfs in an effort to avoid stereotypes, many fans argue that this decision has only taken opportunities away from actors with dwarfism. In contrast, Snow White and the Evil Queen embraces the fairy tale's classic elements, earning praise for staying true to its roots. But the internet remains divided. Supporters of Disney's version accuse Brett Cooper of using the project to undermine Rachel Zegler and push a political narrative, while Cooper's fans see her adaptation as a refreshing return to traditional storytelling. Meanwhile, Zegler herself is reportedly unhappy with the rising success of Snow White and the Evil Queen, especially after its trailer amassed over 4 million views, without the massive marketing budget Disney enjoys. With the battle between these two versions heating up, it begs the question: is the underdog winning? To be speaking for itself. With Disney's version facing backlash and delays, Snow White and the Evil Queen is gaining traction as the film that fans actually want to see. While the entertainment industry often favors big-budget productions, this situation proves that audiences still crave authenticity over forced reinventions. The delay of Disney's Snow White suggests that the studio is feeling the pressure and perhaps even reconsidering aspects of the film to mitigate the controversy. Meanwhile, Brett Cooper's version continues to generate buzz, positioning itself as the alternative that respects the source material. Whether Disney can turn things around remains to be seen, but for now, Team Cooper appears to have the upper hand in this unexpected battle of the Snow Whites. Disney is undoubtedly in a tough spot. With production costs soaring past $340 million, the company faces an uphill battle to make Snow White profitable, especially when fan backlash and boycott calls continue to grow. While Disney has reimagined classic stories before, many viewers feel this latest adaptation strays too far from the heart of the original, fueling frustration rather than excitement. Meanwhile, Snow White and the Evil Queen has positioned itself as the faithful alternative, giving fans a version they believe stays true to the fairy tale's essence. The real question is, will audiences show up for Disney's take, or will they rally behind Cooper's vision? Let us know where you stand, Team Zegler or Team Cooper.